The voice of sharing, Durian ASEAN.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Good morning, this is Arlene and you're listening to our ASEAN Daily where we bring you news from Southeast Asia. Today is the second working day of the year in 2016. I'm sure everybody have probably starting to, get into the groove of waking up very early in the morning and going to work and of course going through such massive traffic jams. But we here at Durian ASEAN, while you're still in your car or maybe you've just reached your office, probably you want to keep yourself updated on what's happening in this region. We want to start off with Laos. Laos Chairmanship of ASEAN. What will be the main agenda? Under the theme, Turning Vision into Reality for a Dynamic ASEAN Community, Laos is working with other ASEAN member countries and dialogue partners to develop concrete action plans and mobilize resources to realize the ASEAN Vision 2015. If you still remember last year in December, that was the vision that came out by the 10 member state of ASEAN nation, and Laos is interested in transforming itself from a landlocked country to a land-linked one through infrastructure development and connections. The main agenda for ASEAN this year will focus on narrowing the development gap within the region, implementing ASEAN connectivity, and strengthening institutional capacity. This is special for ASEAN because this year, which is the first year in principle in which the ASEAN community is realized, although many obstacles remain, it also marks 2 commemorative summits, 25 years of ASEAN-China dialogue partners and 20 years of ASEAN-Russia dialogue partnership. The CLMV country, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar and Vietnam, must speed up and broaden their policy reforms, particularly with regards to good governance and accountability, institutional building, education and skill development, labor market and obviously migration governance and healthcare. In terms of infrastructure development and connectivity, Laos is working on the post-2015 agenda for ASEAN connectivity, which constitutes a key component in the ASEAN Community Vision 2025. ASEAN needs to link its connectivity plan with the initiatives of the dialogue partners, particularly China's One Belt, One Road initiative. And of course, within the CLMV country, we need to also highlight Myanmar. And we all know Myanmar just fresh off from its last general election and is on a fresh start to start a new government. And the new Myanmar government faces pressure on Chinese infrastructure projects. One of the key issues for Myanmar's incoming new government will be how it deals with some unpopular Chinese infrastructure projects in the country. One of China's requests is likely to be restarting of the very controversial Mid-Zone Dam, which will be very difficult for her to agree. This is according to Richard Halsey, a political analysis on Myanmar. And so she will have to find ways to reassure China, in this case Aung San Suu Kyi have to find ways to reassure China that she respects the relationship, that she will continue to nurture the relationship while at the same time rebalancing the US and the West. He added that Aung San Suu Kyi is going to have to find ways to reassure Chinese that even if she can't give them, that there are other ways that she can reassure China about the security of their huge investment projects. Some observers say the NLD administration must introduce better accountability mechanism and international standards for these projects. They hope that the new government will not only compromise the welfare of its citizens, but for the sake of enhancing relationship with its giant northern neighbor. We move on to the Philippines, and the Philippines obviously is in preparation of its upcoming general election in 2016. Senator Poe urges shift to digital education. If you still remember, Senator Grace Poe, who was not allowed to contest in the presidential election due to some glitches in her background, in her birth year, in her birthplace, whether she is supposed to be Philippines or she is born in the US or have been living in the US for so long that whether she should align as she should be considered as a true blue Filipino. That's one of the big questions that Senator Grace Poe is fighting for. But on the side, Senator Grace Poe is also talking about the education system, and she said that the education system in the Philippines should be redirected towards digital inclusion if Filipino students are to be globally competitive and skilled in technology. Digital literacy should be at the forefront of Philippine education. We have to transform our system so that our students will have the skills that they need to excel in a technology-driven world. This is according to Grace Poe's remark. And she also added that if there's one thing that she would like to put money in, it would be the development of the Filipino youth. It's an investment in the country's future. As we all know, Grace Poe, in fact, is a former teacher herself, and she knows what she's talking about. During her proclamation as an independent presidential candidate in September last year, the senator stressed in her 20-point agenda the need for digitalization in the country's education system. She believed that the integrating new learning technologies will improve the learning process as a whole and will cost a lot less in the long run. She said that she cannot expect to reap any benefit if we don't sow it. So what she's trying to say is, Filipinos or the Philippine governments, if you want a better Philippines, invest on the young Filipinos. We move on to global issues, and globally the situation between Saudi Arabia and Iran is doing quite bad. In fact, Saudi Arabia has severed its diplomatic ties with Iran. This is due to some domestic politics within Iran that which one of it is prosecuted one of the Shia clerics, which enraged the Iranian government. Demonstrators took to the streets of Tehran, Iran, and began defacing Saudi property on Saturday night after Shia cleric Bakir al-Nimr was executed. Saudi Arabia announced on Sunday that it is breaking diplomatic ties with Iran and has given Iranian diplomats 48 hours to vacate the country. Some 400 demonstrators took to the streets of Iranian capital Tehran, while some began defacing Saudi property. Photos on social media show a fire was started at the Saudi embassy. Authorities have told demonstrators not to protest in front of the embassy and instead gather at a square in central Tehran. But protesters ignored them as they stood outside of the embassy shouting, "Death to Al Saud!" And Iranian President Hassan Rouhani called the attack on the Saudi embassy in Tehran unjustifiable. This is a report that was quoted by the AP. And Rouhani also condemned Saudi Arabia's execution of regime opponent Arlene, which sparked the attack on the embassy. The 56-year-old Arlene was Saudi's most prominent Shia cleric and was shot and arrested in July 2012. We will take a short break. When we return, we'll discuss the economic side of Southeast Asia. Stay tuned listening to us at Durian ASEAN.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene. You're back with me again on our ASEAN Daily. So, poverty is on the rise in Indonesia, and this is confirmed by the statistics agency there. The number of Indonesians living in poverty continue to be on the rise as of last September, as weakening economic growth curbed income opportunities among the country's most underprivileged. More than 28.5 million people, or 11.1% of Indonesia's population, earn in an income considered to be below the poverty line at rupiah 344,809 rupiah a month. This is equivalent to $24.8. The figure is a marked increase from 27.7 million Indonesians living in poverty, or 10.9% of the population in 2014. However, it is still a decline from 28.6 million people recorded in March 2015. Maluku and Papua unfortunately remain the country's poorest regions, with 22% of their population living under the poverty line. The Indonesian economy likely expanded by 4.7% last year, the weakest growth since 2009, and slowing down from 5% in 2014. The country's income has been under pressure from the drop in global demand for commodities, the main source of income for most underprivileged workers. And on the other news, we have US dollar to be the world beater again in 2016. That's such a great news that the US is doing quite well with its currency. The dollar has made an opportunity to make history after 3 straight years of gains. Strategists are forecasting the US currency will be a world beater again in 2016, strengthening against 7 of 10 developed world peers by the end of the year, according to the median estimate in a Bloomberg survey. That look is backed by the Federal Reserve's stated intent to continue raising interest rates while peers in the rest of the world keep them flat or lower. The US currency will end 2016 higher against its major counterparts, except the Canadian dollar, British pound, and the Norwegian krone, posting its biggest gains against the New Zealand and Australia dollars and Swiss franc, according to forecasts compiled by Bloomberg. That comes after 3 straight years of gains for the US trade-weighted real broad dollar index, a monthly weighted average of the dollar against the currencies of its main trading partners, compiled by the Fed back in 1973. The current rally kicked off in 2013 when the Fed began winding down the extraordinary monetary stimulus it had in place since the 2007-2009 recession. Stalking speculation, higher interest rates would follow. This causes the currency to strengthen because it means investors would be paid more to keep money in dollars compared with others. On the other hand, we see Philippines to join China-backed AIIB Infrastructure Bank. AIIB stands for the ASEAN Investment Infrastructure Bank, and the Philippines, involved in a territorial dispute with Beijing in the South China Sea, is interestingly set to join the China-backed ASEAN Infrastructure Investment Bank, describing it as a promising institution. But for the Philippines, the AIIB will augment the complement existing multilateral institutions in accelerating economic growth. Finance Secretary Cesar Purisima said in a statement, "The AIIB is a promising institution addressing investment needs and will help close financing gaps in many countries." Purisima said, adding that the Philippines was confident the bank was committed to transparency, independence, openness, and accountability. Founding members will initially pay 20% of AIIB's $100 billion authorized capital. The Philippines' indicative paid-in capital is $196 million. The Department of Finance said Manila is embroiled in territorial disputes with Beijing over some islands in the South China Sea. The Philippines has challenged Beijing before the arbitration court in The Hague, a case Beijing has not recognized. And more news on Southeast Asia economy. We are seeing Vietnam adopt more market-based exchange rates as dong pressured. State Bank of Vietnam said it will adopt a more market-based methodology in setting the dong's daily reference rate versus the dollar after the currency sank to the limit of its permitted trading range in late December. The rate will also reflect domestic and international money market developments, the monetary authority said, adding that it is willing to sell dollars to stabilize the money market and ensure the dong can fluctuate within its trading band. The move comes as tightening monetary policy in the U.S. boosts demand for greenback, and a depreciating yuan drags currencies lower across Asia. The dong's 4.8% loss last year compares with slides of 19% of Malaysia's ringgit and 10% of Indonesia's rupiah, the region's two worst performing currencies. We will take a short break. When we return, we'll discuss on the arts and culture side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene. You're back with me again on ASEAN Daily. And this time we move into the arts and culture side of Southeast Asia. In Singapore, the movie GaGa pulled from Malaysia event after film censored. The film, which was slated to be screened at the Titian Budaya Festival in Kuala Lumpur, was censored after Malaysian authorities said a scene in it could be a security threat, quote-unquote. Film Tan Pin Pin has withdrawn her 2005 documentary Singapore GaGa from an event in Kuala Lumpur after Malaysian authorities censored it. The Malaysian censors have told Tan to erase the saying animal in Malay and delete the subtitles of animals, which has a double meaning, she wrote. And the census report added that the dialogue can create doubt and restlessness among citizens and may finally cause a security threats, a disturbance of public peace and national defense. The film, which pays homage to the quirkiness of Singapore's landscape, has been screened at the Rotterdam International Film Festival, Festival of Three Continents, and Bangkok International Film Festival. I'll leave it to you guys to see whether the film or the word itself actually would cause quote-unquote security threats. You never know. Anyway, before we end the news today, just a quick advice for young women. It's not from me, actually it's from Mark Zuckerberg. He actually replied a very interesting Facebook post that asks about dating advice, and he actually gave quite a brilliant advice. Mark Zuckerberg has a simple message for young women everywhere. Be the nerd you want to see or date in the world. One matchmaking grandmother tried to flatter the Facebook CEO by writing in a comment on his Facebook page that she always tells her granddaughters to date the nerd because he may just become the next Mark Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg, who has been responding to many comments lately while on paternity leave taking care of his adorable daughter Max, was quickly to try politely changing the way she thinks about her granddaughter's future prospect. He wrote, even better would be to encourage them to be the nerd in their school so they can be the next successful inventor. Yep, that's the advice that I would give to my young kids, or even to myself. I think being a nerd is not really a bad thing, or it's in fact it's quite a cool thing to be great at things that you should be great of, especially in science and technology. That's all from us today. Thanks for listening to Durian ASEAN, and you can always tune into our show on a daily basis, 9 to 10 o'clock, the new timing for the news commentary on our ASEAN Daily Malaysian time at GMT +8. You can listen it to our website at durianasian.com or via our app by downloading the Durian ASEAN app, or you can always go to our Facebook, Twitter and Instagram to keep up with our social media postings. We have a lot of things to share on these things that are happening in this region. Thanks for listening and have a great day.